Well, good evening. We're looking at continuing on the commentary on on 2 Samuel, and we're up to chapter 18 today. The title says, Israelites, they're slain, Absalom killed in Ephraim. And David numbered the people that were with him and set captains over thousands and captains over hundreds. David sent forth 1/3 of the people under the hand of Joab, and a third part under the hand of Abishai, and the son of Zeruiah, that's Joab's brother, and a third part under the hand of Ittai, the Gittite. And the king said unto the people, I will surely go forth with you myself also. But the people answered, You shall not go forth, for if we flee away, they will not care for us, neither if half of us die they won't care for us. But now there are worth 10,000 of us. You are worth 10,000 of us. Therefore now it is better that you succor us out of the city. And the king said unto them, What seems best I shall do. And the king stood by the gate side, and all of the people came out by their hundreds and by their thousands. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. And all of the people heard when the king gave all the captains charge concerning Absalom. In the wilderness, David appointed regimental colonels responsible for 1,000 troops, and company commanders responsible for 100 troops. 1/3 of the army was placed under General Joab, another third under his brother Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, and the other third under Ittai the Gittite. The king planned to lead out the whole army, but his leaders and the men objected strongly to this idea. You must not do this, they said. For if we turn and run and half of us die, it will make no difference to them, because they'll only be looking for you. You are now worth at least 10,000 of us, and it is better that you stay here protected in the city and send us help if we need it. Well, whatever you think is best, the king finally replied. So the king stood at the gate as all of the troops passed by to go to war for their king. And the king commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, For my sake, deal gently with young Absalom. And all of the troops heard the king give them this charge. So the people went out into the fields against Israel, and the battle was in the woods of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were slain by the servants of David. And there was there a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men. For the battle was scattered over the face of the country, and the wood devoured more people than the sword devoured. So the battle became in the forest of Ephraim, between the forces of David and the forces of Absalom. The troops of Absalom were beaten back by David's forces, and there was a great slaughter of 20,000 men who died that day. The battle raged all across the countryside, and more men disappeared in the forest than were killed. Although 20,000 men being killed in one day of battle is enormous, it is not the most men killed in a battle in one day. This happened in the battle between Napoleon and the Russian forces, where 50,000 men died in one day. Then if we fast forward to World War II, when the first atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima, where an estimated 140,000 soldiers and civilians lost their lives in one day, and with a further 90,000 3 days later, when the second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. So coming back, verse 9. And Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode on a mule, and the mule went under the boughs of a great oak tree, and his head caught in the oak. And he was taken up between the heaven and the earth, and the mule that was under him went away. And a certain man saw it and told Joab, and said, Behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak. And Joab said unto the man that told him, And behold, you saw him, and why did you not smite him there to the ground? And I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. And the man said unto Joab, Though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, yet would I not put forth my hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king charged you and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. Otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against my own life. For there is none matter hidden from the king, and thou thyself would have set thyself against me. Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand, and thrust them into the heart of Absalom, while he was yet alive, in the middle of the oak. And 10 men that bare Joab's armour compassed about and smote Absalom, and slew him. And Joab blew a trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people. And they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood, and laid a very great heap of stones upon him. And all of Israel fled, every one to his tent. So during the battle Absalom came upon some of David's men, and as he fled on his mule, it went beneath the thick boughs of a great oak tree, and his thick head of hair caught in the branches. His mule continued on, leaving him dangling in the air. One of David's men told Joab, What? You saw him there and you did not kill him? Joab demanded. I would have rewarded you handsomely and made you a commissioned officer. For $1 million I would not do it, the man replied. We all heard the king say to you and Abishai and Ittai, For my sake, please don't harm young Absalom. And if I betrayed the king by killing his son, and I'm sure that the king would find out who did it, you yourself would be the first to accuse me. Enough of this nonsense, Joab said. Then Joab took 3 daggers and plunged them into Absalom's heart as he dangled from the tree. 10 of Joab's armor bearers surrounded Absalom and made sure that he was dead. Then Joab blew the trumpet, and his men returned from chasing after the army of Israel. They threw Absalom's body in a great big deep pit in the forest, and piled a great heap of stones upon his grave, and the army of Israel fled back to their homes. Verse 18. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name, and it is called unto this day Absalom's place. Absalom had built a monument to himself in the king's valley, for he said, I have no son to carry on my name. He called it Absalom's monument, as it's still known today. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok the priest, Let me now run and bear the king's tidings. Let me now run and bear the king's tidings, how that the Lord has avenged him of all his enemies. And Joab said unto him, Thou shalt not bear tidings this day, for thou shalt bear tidings another day. But this day thou shalt not bear tidings, because the king's son is dead. Then said Joab to Cushi, Go tell the king what thou hast seen. And Cushi bowed himself to Joab and run away. Then said Ahimaaz the son of Zadok yet again to Joab. He's a persistent little fellow. But howsoever, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushi. And Joab said, Wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that we have no tidings ready? But howsoever, he said, Let me run, And Joab said unto him, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by way of the plain, and overran Cushi. And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate under the wall, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man running alone. And the watchman cried and told the king, and the king said, If he is alone, there is tidings in his mouth. And he came apace and drew near. And the watchman saw another man running, and the watchman called unto the porter and said, Behold, man running alone. And king said, He also brings tidings. And the watchman said, Methinks that the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man, and comes with good tidings. And Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, All is well. And he fell down to the earth upon his face before the king, and said, Blessed be the Lord thy God, which has delivered up the men that lifted up thy hand against my lord the king. And the Lord said, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I know not what it was. The king said unto him, Turn aside and stand there. And he stood aside and stood still. And behold, Cushi came. And Cushi said, Tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord has avenged thee this day of all of them that arose up against thee. And the king said to Cushi, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushi answered, The enemies of my lord the king, and that rise against thee, to thee hurt, be as that young man is. Then Ahimaaz, son of Zadok the priest, said to Joab, Let me to King David and tell him the good news, that the Lord has saved him from his enemies. Let me go to the king. Let me go to the king and tell him the good news that the Lord has saved him from his enemy Absalom. No, Joab told him. It would not be good news to tell the king that his son is dead. You can be my messenger some other time. So here Joab was trying to protect the messenger by not sending him to deliver bad news. So continuing on. Joab said to the man from Cush, Go tell the king what you have seen. The man bowed to Joab and ran off. But Ahimaaz pleaded with Joab, Please let me go too. No, we don't need you now, my boy. There is no further news to say. Yes, but let me go anyway, he begged. And Joab finally said, All right, go ahead. Then Ahimaaz was off like a rocket. He took a shortcut across the plain and arrived at the palace gate ahead of the man from Cush. King David was sitting at the gate of the city when the watchman climbed the stairs to his post at the top of the wall. He saw a lone man running towards them. He shouted the news down to David, and the king replied, If he is alone, he has news. And the messenger came closer. The watchman saw another man running towards them. He shouted down, Here comes another runner. And the king replied, He will have more news. The first man looks like Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, the watchman said. He is a good man, and he comes with good news, the king replied. Then Ahimaaz cried out to the king, All is well. He bowed low with his face to the ground and said, Blessed be the Lord your God, who has destroyed the rebels who dared to stand against you. What about your young Absalom? The king demanded. Is he all right? When Joab told me to come, there was a lot of shouting, but I didn't know what was happening, Ahimaaz answered. It appears Ahimaaz was apparently afraid to tell the king what actually had happened. Wait here, the king told him. So Ahimaaz stepped aside. Then the man from Cush arrived and said, I have good news for you, my lord, the king. Today Jehovah has delivered you from all of those who rebelled against you. What about young Absalom? Is he all right? The king demanded. And the man replied, May all of your enemies be as that young man is. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went thus, he said, O my son Absalom, my son, Absalom, would God have I died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. Then the king broke into tears and went up into his room over the gate, crying as he went, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I could have died for you, O Absalom, my son, my son. And so we end chapter 18. Chapter 19, Joab causes David to cease his mourning.